we're really excited about this release. We're really excited to get to share some of the latest and greatest and newest features or updated features that you will get to see as part of our next major release, which we are calling our Winter 21 release. Presenting today will be myself, Don Bloomquist, and we also have Mayank Singh, who heads up our architecture and solutions consulting group. And the previous screen, which you did see when you saw that minus 21 degrees Celsius on the screen, I kind of feel sorry for you, Mayank, but stay warm. Okay, let's dive right into our agenda today. Today, really, we're gonna try to do three things with you. We're gonna start out, we're gonna provide a preview of what is in our Winter 21 release. So a little bit of slide presentation, a little bit of content. We'll jump mainly into a live demo, which will be a bulk of the content today, where you can see some of these new capabilities and screens, et cetera, in action. And then we'll close out with what's next in terms of a roadmap and next steps, et cetera. Great. So Winter 21 release, what should you expect? And with this, we're going to focus initially on our release management solution on Flosum. So we've really bucketed our Winter 21 release into kind of four main areas. The first area we like to refer to it as productivity enhancers. So how can we make your team move faster, be more efficient, encounter less hoops to go through? So we really want to help you speed the delivery of your software solutions. So as an overall goal, what we're trying to do here with all of the features that I'll talk about in a slide or two and that you'll see in the live demo is we're really looking to do a couple of things. So one, how can we help you eliminate the need for as many manual efforts as possible, such as snapshots? And we actually have an exciting new feature today that we'll dive into regarding that. And number two, overall, we have a goal of trying to get you to the point of where you have zero deployment failures. And it's not just a silver bullet, wave a wand and you have no deployment failures, but there's a few different things around this. We have a couple of interesting features that I think we're really happy about, that I think make a difference and progress you towards this goal. Kind of the second grouping of capabilities we see is we have a DORA-based metrics capability now. We're going to share some information on that and a little bit what it looks like. And we know in the areas of metrics and reporting, back in early 21, end of 2020, we said that this was going to be a year where we try to progress more on the metrics and reporting front. So the DORA-based metrics help us there. And we've introduced a couple more out-of-the-box standard reports that we think can really help you understand where your components at, where and who's deployed them, etc. As we move down, integrations, always a key topic. We always have customers approaching us. Well, we're looking at this tool, we're looking at that tool. How do we integrate them in with our release management software? How do we automate things as much as possible? So this is kind of a continuing, ongoing work. It is an area of focus for us. And we've done some things here. We have enhanced our capabilities with webhooks, and you are going to see some more information on that here in the live demo. Webhooks is a key area to help us facilitate quicker, easier, faster integrations. Well, not a direct integration as per se, Velocity, now Salesforce Industries. We've done quite a bit of work on that here in this past 3 to 4 months, so that with Velocity components, you can now manage, deploy them from the same branch as your standard Salesforce components and have all that work managed as one, as opposed to trying to handle them differently. Other integrations we've worked on, so we've enhanced our Provar integration significantly. We do use webhooks to work with that. Our WorkSoft integration is available. And for those of you that require or utilize Git, we have made some updates so that you can utilize additional platforms for integrating to Git, such as AWS or Google Cloud. And finally, we have some things we've tried to work on to help you in terms of usability, robustness of the tool, to continue to make your processes easier, to continue to make Flowsome easier to use for your end users. So robustness, we know Flosum works off of the Salesforce metadata API. So with this next major release, API 53 will be supported. Scalability is one of the key improvements we have worked on here. So when we talk improvements by 50%, that relates to the areas of size of components that can be handled by Flowsome, the volume of components within a branch, etc. So including additional retries when we're searching for Salesforce in the deployment results. And finally, I'll talk about usability a little bit. We're going to talk about some terminology changes that we're making in the solution. It doesn't necessarily mean functional changes, but we're trying to get the solution to the point where end users can look at Flowsome and really almost immediately know or expect what that capability is and what would be a logical flow for a user to work through on the screen. So really excited to talk about these. Now, in that first bullet, in productivity enhancers, which I think are important to everybody, how can we save your developers, your release managers, hours, days of effort, etc. So we really want to focus here. So one of the features that we're really excited about is a feature that we are leveraging that Salesforce has delivered here in this last quarter. And that feature that Salesforce has delivered is called Source Member. So Flowsome is now able to leverage Source Member. And what that does, it provides an automated component retrieval for you. So you don't have to go in and do manual snapshots. It contains within minutes, within seconds, if you want, with a refresh to identify changes that have happened on a sandbox, and you have the ability to pull those into Flowsome very quickly. So we're really excited about that feature. Additionally, we know when development processes are happening, developers might be working with different stories, they might be working on the same component. You are going to have conflicts with the components that your developers are working on. And one of Flowsome's strengths is its ability to merge conflicts. We've really put additional focus to improve that even more. So you can now do things like merge conflicts between components in multiple different branches, kind of within the same process, so you don't have to go through and try and track and manage that separately. We've provided support now, so if you are in the process of merging conflict from a source branch to a target branch, we have provided tracking, so you know if you had to stop partway through that process, there's indicators now, so you know, actually I've already merged these 5 components from my source branch to my target branch. I don't have to worry about those. I just need to worry about the 20 other components that I didn't yet get to. So excited to share some of these additional, there's those 2 and a couple of other nice merge conflict enhancements that we think will make your job easier and a little bit quicker. One of the other things we have heard from our clients and that we're excited about is the ability to do partial translation retrievals and deployments. So instead of having to deploy kind of the whole gamut of translations that you might have, you can now, similar to the way we recommend and we do profile management, where we have the get profile button and you can pull in only those FLS settings related to components on a branch and deploy only those. That same capability has now been extended into translations. Deployment Analyzer 3, we're quite excited about that. Mike's going to share some more information on that. For those of you on the call that know what Deployment Analyzer is and are actively using it, we are expanding quite significantly upon the errors that we're able to catch and resolve for you. For those of you that are not as familiar with this capability, Deployment Analyzer is one of our most popular features with our clients. It is a feature that enables you for a number of different errors that Salesforce would report to you on an iterative basis when you do a validation or a deployment. The Deployment Analyzer capability in Flowsome is able to catch those errors all at once, present them to you on one screen, and allow you to actually resolve those errors with literally a click of a button. And so kind of this is the 3rd wave of Deployment Analyzers. We've continued to build upon it, and we really think this is a really great feature to help your developers, your release managers save. We have heard, we do have use cases save literally hours to days in some cases of time. So exciting. Okay. Beyond productivity enhancers, we do have a couple of other features that I'll just call to your attention now. So number one, we have the ability to define and track pre and post deployment manual steps. I know some customers are doing that via notes and attachments, but we now have a feature built right into Flosum for this capability. And finally, we've made some updates or enhancements to our pull request capability. So now you will be able to review and comment on destructive changes. I think that's great. And number two, we've updated the security around pull requests so that any changes to a pull request are restricted only to the selected pull request reviewers when that pull request was created. Nice. Okay, now I want to talk about terminology changes. And there's a couple of things I want to talk about here. Number one, the objective and the reason for making some of these terminology changes was for usability. We really want the end users to be able to look at a tab, look at a button, and have a pretty darn good idea of what that button will do and what that action is, what that tab is. So it's really, as you introduce users onto Flowsome, whether it's a new company or whether it's Flowsome's been existing for a while and you bring a new user into your system, how can we help those users onboard to Flowsome? Flowsome is very easy to use, but how can we improve that even further so they get it right away? So we've made some terminology changes. These don't impact the existing functionality. They're there really to try and help you understand some of these terms and capabilities and tabs in Flowsome. So what are they? We've given a summary of the key terminology changes here. So on the left column, that's what the term is currently. When you are upgraded to the next major release, the term on the right is what that text will be changed to. So we are changing pull request to peer review. We think that will help that understanding and avoid some of the confusions around how Flowsome works. On the branch page, that deployment analyzer function or feature that I just chatted about, we will be changing that name to pre-deploy fix. And we really think that is pretty descriptive of what that feature is and when you would use it. So when you have your branch ready to do a release, before you do a validate or deploy, you can push this pre-deploy fix. It will capture those errors and give you an ability to resolve or fix those errors that Salesforce would otherwise report to you. Okay. Again, on the branch page, impact analysis, a really popular feature, allows you to do a real-time conflict check against an org of a given choice. That will be retermed to overwrite protection. And that is really the intent of this impact analysis feature. It is there so you can do that real-time conflict check against a target org. And the objective here, and if you're using this, you can guarantee that you are never going to unintentionally overwrite a piece of code within the org that you are going to deploy to. Okay, our repository tab is going to change from repository to source. And finally, on the branch page, a pretty simple fix. The merge branch is going to be now called smart merge. So just a few terms that I want to highlight and update you on. And the final, while it's not a terminology change, just so that you're aware when you see the screen, the button order that you see on that branch page, we are going to be updating that order so it follows a logical flow of your operations. So when you come to a branch, what are the standard operations we would recommend or that you would follow from left to right on your screen? And hopefully that really helps you from a usability kind of, well, I've done this, now my next step would be to do button number 2 and then button number 3, etc. Okay. In terms of the next piece that we want to share via a slide, I want to talk a little bit about Flowsome metrics. We mentioned DORA-based metrics, so Flowsome metrics is exactly that. It is a metrics tool that is based upon Tableau. If you are interested in this, after we go through this, we recommend that you follow up directly with your CSM and we can help you get that set up. There is no additional cost to this feature. or two Flosum metrics. So I will want to make sure that's very clear. We handle and we've got an agreement with Salesforce, and we can get this set up for you very quickly. So what is Flosum metrics? It is a tool set. You have a set of screens where you can perform metrics and analytics. We collect data, we display them on the screen, and we allow you some ability to kind of sub-select and choose portions of, so that you can get down to information that is really important to you. I have shared 3 of the Flosum metrics screens on the slide that you see here. So we do have a couple of others that just didn't fit as nicely onto the slide. So we cover areas such as the deployment frequency. So how frequent, when are you doing your deployments? How many components are in that deployment, etc. You can narrow that list down to orgs of a multiple, a subset of those orgs. We have metrics on who is deploying which component, and we use bubble sizes to indicate the volume of those components. Maybe you have developers that are working mostly in Apex classes, and others that are only doing, kind of label or field-based changes. So you can kind of see who is working on what, and some idea of the sizing of those, and you can narrow down on your developers or your admins that are making those changes. Lead time. We're providing some metrics and some visuals around that. So within your branches, what is the lead time to from when that branch is created and populated to when you're able to deploy that? And then finally, we get into things like quality of releases, change failure rates, etc. So you can see some nice graphics around those. You can kind of, to a certain extent, dive into where those items are. It allows you to manage your team. It allows you to understand where can we make improvements, where our bottlenecks are, how can we improve our development and release management processes so that we can become as efficient as possible. Okay. So with that, I think those are the key changes I want to present from a slide deck on Flowsome itself. Now, Flowsome, in addition to a release management product, we also have 2 additional products and offerings. I want to just talk quickly to some of the changes that are now available to you as from within the last quarter. The first product I'll talk about is Data Migrator. And within Data Migrator, we have made some changes. So we have and/or logic is now available for you in your overlay steps. We have added support for the queue routing config object, and additional support for the migration of customer condition records in CPQ approval rules. I do recommend, and I'll talk to that later, we don't upgrade Data Migrator on the scheduled basis, the same as we do Flowsome. So I do recommend you bring this up with your CSM, and we can make sure we get you the appropriate upgrade package so you can have the latest and greatest version of Data Migrator. And finally, I do want to talk about data backup and recovery a little bit. Data backup and recovery is the newest solution within the Flowsome ecosystem, and we have done quite a lot of work on that this year. It has been a significant focus for us. We have had our customer base has received it quite well, and I want to share some of the updates we've made here that are now available. So we've done a lot of work on the interface to try and make it as intuitive as possible, really make it easy to view statuses, view conditions, perform the work that you need. We've added multi-threading, which has increased backup speed by up to 5 times. The backup speeds can range depending upon types of objects, etc. So it is a little bit fluid, but we have seen significant performance improvements there. Our status monitoring screen, which you are going to see in the live demo, we think that is part of kind of this intuitive interface, but I did want to call that out specifically today. And finally, encryption. We've talked about security all morning within this summit, and with Flowsome, with DBNR, it's no different. It's of the highest concern to us. So ensuring the appropriate encryption is there has been key to us. And now I'd kind of like to close the slide out. There's a whole bunch of information here. I don't want to dive into every single bubble because I really want us to get to this live demo. DB&R provides you a number of options for backup types, a number of restoration options, and how to go about that, and what those activities do. We will see a couple of them here. And if you are interested in more information on this, as always, please get in touch with us. Please get in touch with your customer success manager, and we'll be happy to kind of dive into these based on your interest and your needs. So with that, I think that's the closing of the slide presentation of the content of the next release. I think what is most exciting about this is to jump to a live demo so that you can actually see some of these things we've talked about and more in action. And with that, I will turn it over to Mayank to continue our journey here.
Great. Thank you, Don. That was a wonderful recap of all that we have coming. And I'm really excited to show it to you now. So let's start off with the automated retrieval feature that Don was talking about. As some of you who might be using our Flowsum Sandbox product would be aware of, we do already have it. It will look very similar to what we are seeing here currently. But what this allows you to do is do it in a much less onerous manner. You don't need to install a package in your sandbox in order to get this automated retrieval happening, which is what you had to do with the Flowsum Sandbox. And it works a lot faster than what Flowsum Sandbox was doing. Plus, it allows you to capture components which might have been deleted by you in the sandbox. So not only will it pick up the components you have introduced newly or changed, but it will also pick up components that you have deleted. And you can pretty much select all these different components right from here and commit them to a branch. So considering that it is a lot faster, you don't need to install anything in your Flowsum Sandbox to do this. We do hope that it will very much reduce, if not entirely eliminate, the need to do manual snapshots to retrieve your changes. And plus, if you select a deleted component here, let's say, along with maybe some others, the deleted component will automatically move to the destructive changes section of your branch. So you can pretty much automatically then go ahead and delete it from other orgs as well. So yeah, this should definitely save you a lot of time in doing the snapshots that you might be doing right now. Moving on to our merge branch improvements. We are introducing multi-branch merging now. So most of you will be familiar with this merge branches screen. There will be a new checkbox here for merge from multiple branches. And you can pretty much add as many branches as you want to here to merge all of them in a single shot into, let's say, this target branch. So once you have added, I have 2 branches here that I have added as source. I can click on my check conflicts button, and it will show me all the conflicts that are there with the target and with each other among the source. So here, for example, we can see that the same component is there listed twice because it is in both the source branches that I have selected. And we show it as a conflict. It's also in the target. We have introduced a new status here called conflict new. What that implies is that the same component exists in more than one source branch, though it does not exist in the target branch. So still, it is a conflict and something that needs to be merged. So this allows you to basically, if you had 10 feature branches that you wanted to merge into a sprint branch, you can just do it in a single shot, as opposed to doing it one by one, which you would have done until the last release. We have also changed this interface a bit. These 3 new columns have been added. So these two columns come from the target branch. And for each component, they are telling us what was the last branch in the target that it was merged from, and when was it committed into the target branch last. And this particular flag tells us if the latest version of this component in the source has already been merged into the target. So if that is the case, then you don't really need to do the merge again. It might still show up as a conflict if some other branch has merged after it, but you know that your source has already been merged, and that is what this flag tells us. And then let's see, once we are ready to do our merge comparison, we see here for new lines, we have changed this icon. It used to cause a lot of confusion. This icon was pretty much an arrow pointing in the other direction from this one. And for new users, I think it felt like the line would move from left to right, which was not really the case. It was a remove, it still is a remove, so no functional changes, just the icon changes so that people realize what it does a little better. Another new feature here, which I'm really excited about, is the ability to now jump from one change to the another, depending on the change type. So for those of you who have had the joy of merging a full profile versus a partial profile, you would know that you end up with probably thousands of missing lines when you have a full profile here, and very few, let's say, new or changed lines. But what you are interested in is only seeing those new or changed lines rather than the rest of the missing lines that are out there. So with this particular feature here, I have, let's say, when unselected the changed lines, it allows me to just jump between my new lines, right? So I was on a new line, I came to my next new line, and now I'll go to my third new line, and I skipped all the change lines, etc. So we do believe it'll save you a lot of time when you have that situation where you are interested in only seeing a particular type of change. Moving on to some of the reports, perfect, that we have introduced. So here, if we take a look at this report, what we have here is in which time frame we are looking at, who is the person who has done the deployments in that time frame, which orgs have they done the deployment in, and then which components have been deployed, right? They were deployed from which branch and why were they deployed, right? So which user story did they correspond to? And this is at a per component level. This is not at a per branch level, right? So literally, if you can have multiple components in the same branch, and it will track for that specific component, which user story that component is being deployed to. If, let's say, the branch maybe has components for 10 or 20 user stories, but this doesn't show all those user stories that might be associated with the branch. It only shows the user story that is associated with that particular component. And here is another report, which is very similar. So here you can pretty much track at the component level exactly what journey that component has taken on its way all the way to maybe production. So we can see that it first got deployed to this org, then it got deployed to this org, maybe any further orgs if it had been deployed to, again, who has deployed it, who is the developer, when was it done, which branch was it deployed using, and what is the component record that was actually used to deploy it. As we can see, these are lookups into these particular records. So pretty much you can refine this report to your needs to include any of the fields that are included in any of these records. If, let's say, when you modify or customize, let's say, the branch record to put some fields in there, you can easily include them in your report. So yeah, these two reports introduced right out of the box. Then our next change that we would like to show is the deployment analyzer here. And with the deployment analyzer, as Don had mentioned, we have the flow definitions and a whole bunch of other components that we are catching errors for now that we were not doing earlier. So if I was to go into my article on the deployment analyzer, this is where we were initially, or until this version. These are the kind of errors we were catching in the deployment analyzer. API version errors for these components, missing components errors for these 4 component types. If I now look at what we have with our latest release, so yes, profiles and permission sets continue to be there, but a whole bunch of different types of errors for custom objects, custom fields, a bunch of layout and record type errors. Reports now, if you have missing report types, you can see the reports, they will be there, they can be retrieved. Similarly, if any custom field is missing, version number errors that we were already catching for some of the component types, we have added some additional component types for which we can show you the metadata API versions. Not only are we catching now the metadata API version errors, but also if there are any errors related to managed package versions, right? You cannot really deploy components that belong to managed packages if the version is not right. So we will catch those and allow you to fix those also, among a ton of other errors that we are catching with the deployment analyzer. Next, Don talked about translations. So those of you who work with translations have shared that pain point where the translation file is a single file within Salesforce. And if, let's say, you had maybe done the translation or had to do the translation for 100 custom labels, you did 50 of them, got them approved, the other 50 are done but not yet approved. You can't just take those 50 that are approved and move them forward. You had to wait for all the 100 of them to get approved. So now with a feature where you can both retrieve and deploy partial translations, you can pretty much put the components whose translations you need into a branch, click on this get profiles/translations button, decide whether you want translations, custom object translation, etc. And it will extract from your translation files only the translations related to the components which are in the branch. And similarly, you can deploy those forward as well. And then regarding Flosum, last but not the least, the new webhook enhancements. So we have added newer authentication action options. You can authenticate using different mechanisms now against whichever enterprise system you want to integrate with. Similarly, there are various different methods available to pass your parameters. The payload can be defined here. It can also be defined at the branch. If it is, it can get picked up from there. You can modify the headers that need to be passed to your system. So it's in general very flexible and generic, what we have now. And if let's say the target enterprise system supports webhooks, which most systems do today, then integrating into it will become a lot simpler and easier and faster to do in some cases. It's just a configuration on our end. If it supports it, we don't even need to do any customization. You literally just come and define here and you're done with your integration. So really excited about the enhancements on the webhook side. Then let's move on to the data backup and recovery tool. Here we have a new dashboard. As we can see, we are tracking pretty much what your API limits are on your org that you are backing up and how much of it is being utilized, etc. Other scenarios like the number of backups that you have taken, what's the size, the total number of records. You can pretty much jump for each backup that is happening, how many records, etc. So a very visual interface to show what's happening with your backups. We have also introduced the template-based backup. So until now, you could do a full or an incremental backup, but now you can pretty much define templates to determine which records for which objects you want to migrate and even filter down on them. So in order to define a template, you would first create a data set. So a data set is nothing but the object definition for the records that you want to back up, which object they belong to, which fields within those records you want to back up. If you want to filter and back up only a certain set of records, you can do that also. So pretty much you can define a data set to define which records you are interested in from a backup perspective. And you can define multiple data sets and then you can string them together in a template. So it's a template which actually then runs the backup, shall we say. But it can have a whole sequence of data sets here, and then all the records that match whatever you have defined in your data sets, they get backed up. So yeah, template-based backups are now available. We also now have the ability to do a comparison of a backup against an org. So here we are comparing a backup against an org, and let us say in my org, I can select which object or objects I want to compare. But let us say in my org, I had some code go RE, and now all my annual revenue values are deleted from my account records. So I can see here that, yes, in my backup, I have my annual revenue value for this particular account record. And I can now move further and restore it from this comparison screen back into the org. Similarly, we also have backup to backup comparison available now. So let us say I actually messed up the data in my org and I didn't even realize it. I kept on taking backups. So now I actually need to do that comparison between my backups to figure out where is the last backup where I have good data that I want to restore to. So this allows you to do that, and then you can go ahead and restore the backup that you find has the relevant data. Okay, so yeah, that covers our live demo part of the presentation, and I'll turn it back to Don.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Hopefully everybody here is kind of excited about these new features as we are. If you have any questions on them, we'll get into next steps and what to do about that. But very, very exciting things. Great, we could see them in action. So now that we've talked about what is coming here in this next major release, let's talk about a couple of things. We just have about 2 or 3 minutes longer here. So the first thing I want to share and talk about is what comes next. What happens following this next major release? What are kind of some things that are on the horizon? What are some things our development team is working on? So this obviously isn't everything. But it is a few key points I wanted to call out and make sure everyone here is aware of. So one of the first things I'd like to call to your attention is multi-cloud DevOps. It is, I don't want to say just a buzzword, but there's lots of activity in the industry around multi-cloud DevOps, so MuleSoft, et cetera. You will be seeing support for and how Flosum can work with such tools. So stay tuned for that. That will be coming in 2022 sooner than later. Number two, we've dedicated an entire summit to security and Salesforce and how important that is. And Flosum being a leader in the space, we intend to maintain and even lengthen that position. And so a focus on security, monitoring, deeper code scanning, lots of activity in that space, and you should expect more updates, enhancements, additional capabilities there. And finally, one of the things we are hearing quite a bit from a number of our customers is around test automation. There are various tools out there. You heard from Provar earlier today, and we have worked with Provar quite a bit this year around that integration. So you will see support as we work with these additional vendors for additional test automation platforms. So some exciting stuff. We'll be adding more to this list as well, or there is others. I just wanted to make sure we called these three out. They seem to be some of the three we're most commonly in conversation with. Okay. Now, we've presented a lot of information here. I want to share a couple of aspects of beyond this webinar. Where do you go find information on the release on some of these features, et cetera? So the webinar that we're hosting today, we are recording it. We will be posting that. You should expect to see it in about a couple of days. You'll see the recording of this webinar up on our success portal, so success.flosum.com. The release notes for the Winter 21 release are currently posted on the success portal. So right after this, if it's of interest to you, you can go right to those release notes and kind of see the documentation of what we've shown and discussed today, as well as articles on some of the new features and of course the existing features, etc. Number two, I just want to again call to attention certifications. You can register for both our professional and our expert level certifications right from the success portal. We're finding quite a few of our customers have been asking questions about that. So I just want to make sure I call this to attention today for the general viewership that certifications we do advise. It gives a nice general first introduction to Flosum and then actually hands-on training exercises on a number of the capabilities within Flosum. And you can register for that on the success portal, and there is no charge for that. That is free to you. And the last thing I want to talk about with regards to the success portal is in the last quarter, we have released a new community collaboration capability. So if you go to the success portal, you'll see 4 icons on the far left side of that portal, and the community collaboration is one of those there. We are releasing this capability in stages, so in kind of small groups at a time, so we don't have everybody coming onto it at the same time. There's a couple of things I want to talk about with regards to that here. Number one, we would like to encourage everybody on the success portal to make use of this community collaboration site. Here you can ask questions, you can talk about best practices. Those answers can come from the general community itself. We as Flosum will be participating in that community. So we really expect and hope that you'll take an active interest in this, that we can really grow that to one, help grow the knowledge within the community, the participation within the community, and ultimately when it comes right down to it, how can we continue to improve practices, improve Flosum, improve tool sets, and ultimately get as efficient as you can. Number two, if you do not yet have that icon, if you do not yet have access to that collaboration feature or capability, please follow up with your CSM. We can get you activated right away. If this is something you think would be valuable, you think your team would be able to make use of, you don't have to wait for your the next batch of companies to get rolled out. We can actually activate you right away. So just contact your CSM and we'll be happy to do so. Okay. So I think that's all I need to chat about in terms of the community portal. Now let's talk about next steps. So we've had an introduction to the next release. We've had a live demo of that. So what are the tactical next steps? So in terms of the Flowsome upgrade to the winter 21 release, we will be communicating your specific upgrade date in January via an email. The Christmas season is upon us, so we won't start that upgrade process here before the end of this calendar year. We'll start it after the new year. And just a general reminder, it is an opt-out process. And so to do that, you just need to create a case or contact your CSM. Number two, if you have any questions, if you would like to discuss anything, maybe it's on the terminology changes to make sure you understand that. Maybe it's on one of the new features that caught your attention. Maybe it's general questions on the release. Please either schedule a session with your customer success manager, or you can always bring that up in the next cadence meeting that you have. And finally, the last point I kind of want to raise here is data migrator. Again, I mentioned it earlier. We don't do data migrator on a scheduled release like Flowsome. So I do, and it's almost a request. Your customer success manager should be bringing this up in your next meeting you have with them. But please do raise that in the meeting. I think it's really valuable that you make sure you're on that latest and greatest release. So if you're having any issues, you have the latest and greatest features, you can get the most value out of that tool. Okay. Any questions you have, again, we're here. You can contact us at any time. You can contact your customer success manager at any time. We'll be happy to address those questions. So with that, let's kind of move on to next steps. And I guess as we move on to those next steps, I'd like to leave with a couple of messages. One, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your time. 2021 has been a busy year. It's been a very successful year, and we do really appreciate your attendance at this webinar. So thank you.